Greetings YouTube, welcome back to this video tutorial. Last time we created this database class and we connected to the server. In this video tutorial we will start getting some data from our database. So let's get to it by first creating another class. Let's call it wallpapers.class.php. This class will inherit our database class, so we will have class wallpapers extends database like so. The first we will have our constructor, so it will be like this. The constructor of this wallpapers class, first it will call the parent constructor, the constructor of our database class. By this we will have a connection to our server, and then we will perform these two queries. The first one is to use the wallpapers database, and the second is to set names to the UTF-8 character encoding, so that we have a proper encoding for our characters. So let's start by doing this, and we will see what will happen in our index.php file. First we will require the second class, and then we will create a new object from the class wallpapers, so like so. And then in our index.php we will have this error, undefined property wallpapers PDO. Why is that? Well, because when we created our database class, every member of this class, we will have them private, so they cannot be used outside of this database. The member that we need to use is the PDO, because we need to use it in our class wallpapers. For this to happen, we must change it from private to protected. Protected members cannot be used outside of the classes, but they can be used in another class that will inherit our database class. So changing private to protected, and then in our index.php we will have no message, so everything is good. We are connected to our wallpapers database. So let's start by fetching some data from our database. First, we will need to define some of the private members of this database class. They will be our tables in our database. If you see here, in a minute we will see. So the three tables that we have here are the wallpapers table, and the tags table, and the wallpapers tags table. So here are our three tables, so we need them in our class. And then we will have three possible scenarios when we use this wallpapers database. Either we are requesting a single wallpaper, or we are searching for all the wallpapers in our database, or we are searching for some wallpapers using some of the tags that we have here. So I will define three functions here. The first function, let's call it public function, let's call it 1. When we are searching or requesting a single wallpaper, of course we will need its ID, and then we will have this query here, select star everything from this table. This table means our wallpapers table, where ID equals question mark. This is a prepared statement we need to prepare it, execute it, then return the data. So we will have this. SQL will be this PDO prepare query, and then we will execute it, and the function execute needs a single variable here, which is the ID inside an array, and after that we will return our data from we using the fetch method. So let's try this. Let's call it wallpaper equals D1. Let's try the wallpaper that has 10,001 ID, and then we will var dump this wallpaper, and we will see what happens here. Great, we are here looking at our first wallpaper. If we were having some HTML in our website, we could see clearly our wallpaper that has the 10,001 as its ID. We will have its dimensions, how many views, date added, and everything we need for this wallpaper. That's great. Our first data that we got from our database is, as you can see. The second function that we'll need is sometimes a user will try to browse every possible wallpaper in our database, so we will make for them a public function. Let's call it all. By the way, when we are looking or browsing our wallpapers, we don't want to fetch every row in our database. That will be very bad, so we will try to fetch just some wallpapers, a predefined number of rows if you want. So this function, we will define it like so. We will need a first row and then number of rows. For example, we start from the row number 15 and we go 20 rows after that. So our query will be something like that. This select star, which is everything, from this table, limit the first comma the number of rows and rows. Okay, so let's have this prepared statement like this. We will prepare our query and we will use, instead of using variables like this, we will use variable by name. So our first is a value that we will bind to our SQL statement using the first variable here, and then we will bind another variable of type integer, so like so, using the unrows constant here or the variable here. So here I call it last, I should call it unrows, and we will execute this statement and fetch all the possible rows that we need from this function here. Let's go back to our index.php file. Instead of calling one and method, let's call all method, starting from the first row and having, let's say, 25 rows after that. So here, as you can see here, the first row is the wallpaper 10,001, and the last one, it should be here, 10,025. If I change this, sometimes later when we having the views in our website here, we will have some classes so that will define this number of rows that we will fetch. Let's say let's start from the row 26 and we take just 2 rows after that. So here from 10,026 2 rows to 28, I believe. Where is it? 27. So we fetch just 2 rows, 26 and 27. Let's continue with our third public function. In this function we will have a function that will search for a tag or for wallpapers that have some predefined tags. So public function, let's call it simply search. In this function we'll need another argument that will be the tag that we are searching and our first row in our search and the n rows in our search. This query will be a little bit complicated, so let's say query equals select t1 dot star from this table t1. T1 will be the label of the table. Let's call it t1. T1 dot star, which means everything from the table t1. Join. We will be joining this table. So you can understand here we have 3 tables: wallpapers and tags and wallpapers tags. Here in our database we have the wallpapers table. It has a column called ID, and this ID is the key to define here. For every ID it has some of the multiple tag IDs. So we will join these 2 tables, wallpapers and wallpapers tags, when the ID in the table wallpapers is equal to the ID in the wallpapers tags table. And we will join the third table, tags, where the tag ID here is represented by the key in our third table, ID. So I will perform the 2 times join in here. So I will join this, I called it, I believe, wall tags. So tags without the $sign here. Let's call it t2 on. We will join them on t1.id equals t2.id, and after that I will join the third table, this tags t3 on t3.id equals t2. If you remember, tag id, because here the id here is equal to the tag id here. Everything is prepared here. Let's say where t3 dot name, or I believe tag name, I called it tag name, where t3 dot tag name here, this is the values that we will search. For example, t3 tag name, like, let's call it question mark, and the question mark will be this tag here. So let's prepare our statement here. So let's call it prepare query, and then we will bind the value tag to a string this time. Let's call it pdo param_str first, and we will bind the two values first and rows. I will add here limit first comma and rows. Okay, let's go to our index.php, and instead of all wallpapers, let's search only wallpapers that are tagged. Let's say books, and here, and define property wallpapers tags. First, let's change it to 1 from the first row, and here tags, it is undefined here on line 28. Why that? Because in our wallpapers class we defined it as tag table, not tags. So here let's select tag table. Okay, let's go back. Video exception, invalid parameter number, mixed named and positional number parameters. Okay, the last thing I will need to do is to change this to tag, and I believe this will work. We have wallpapers that are book related. If I don't limit the results, let's say 20, I will have more than 2 wallpapers that are books related. The last thing we will need to do here is to change a little bit this query. I will add this line of code here. I will add another select. I will select another column that I will call relevance, and I will prepare it like this. I will have 1.3 times the match against tag name plus 0.6 times the match against text file, the text of the tag name of the tag. I will define this as a relevance, just like this. When I am looking for anime girls, I want the first wallpapers to show are the wallpapers that are exactly tagged anime girls, and after that I will search for or show the wallpapers that are tagged something that is similar, but it is less relevant, anime girl or group of anime girls or manga girls or something like this. So this is the relevance that I will define, and the tag name has double the relevance or than the text tag. The thing I will add here is to change this, and let's call it like this, where instead of that first condition that we had, I will make this second condition or this different condition with where match tag name and text against tag in Boolean mode, and I will order by relevance. This is the last change I will make to this query. Let's see if this will work. Great. As you can see here, we have some wallpapers that are tagged books, and they are ordered by the relevance. Later on I will add some other orders like the date added or something. Like I could add the date, let's call it t1 dot date added, because I have this column in my table. I can do this, and they are different now by ordered by their date. This will be for the user to choose. So let's call it this. Thank you very much for watching, and next time we will continue our coding for our website. See you later.